Welcome to a new video on the Photography Minimalist. It's just over a week ago that I bought a small lot of 6 cameras. And there are 2 reasons why I bought these cameras. The first reason is the fact that a few of these cameras I can use for my new series, which is called No Expectations. In this series, I use affordable rangefinder and viewfinder cameras that offer me a minimum of manual control, at least aperture priority, and preferably full manual. And the intention of this series is to find out if I can consistently achieve high quality results with these affordable cameras. The second reason is the fact that I only paid €52.25 for these 6 cameras, including cost for shipping. This converts to roughly $60 for 6 cameras, including shipping costs. The seller did communicate to me in advance that 5 out of the 6 cameras are in working condition and 1 camera is not. But even so, I thought this was a fair price to pay for these 6 cameras. The unique thing about this lot of cameras is the fact that they are all from the same manufacturer. They are all manufactured by Ricoh. I've chosen 2 cameras on which I'm going to bring out a separate video. One is the 500 RF, which is this video, and the other camera is the 35S. Both are a rangefinder camera. Before I give you an overview of these cameras and have a detailed look at the Ricoh 500 RF and the images that I was able to achieve, I thought I would tell you that I used Fomapan film, and this is keeping in line with the budget prices that I paid for these cameras. We all know film can get expensive, and the cheapest black and white film that I can buy in the Netherlands at the moment is Fomapan. The prices range from $4.50 to about $5 for a roll of film. So I purchased the 100, 200, and 400 ISO film from Fomapan. And for the first time, I also purchased Fomadon developer. With regards to the Ricoh 500 RF, I shot a little less than half a roll of 400 ISO Fomapan, which I developed in Fomadon at 20 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes, and the developer was diluted 1+1. And I thought I'd show you in advance this photo that I took. You'll see it later on in the video also. And I made a 100% crop to give you an idea of the results you can achieve with this little camera and with Fomapan film. So now let's have a look at an overview of the cameras and dive into the Ricoh 500 RF and the results that I was able to achieve. Before we have a detailed look at the Ricoh 500 RF, there are 2 things that I would like to say. First of all, this is a very collectible camera, especially if you have the manual winder which connects to this camera. The second thing I would like to say is many of these older viewfinder and rangefinder cameras, it's almost impossible to find the right batteries to operate the light meter. And some of these cameras will not work at all if you do not have a battery in the camera. For that reason, I often search for cameras that give me full manual control and that work without the battery. And that's the case with this 500 RF. So I've used this camera without a battery, only in full manual mode, with a separate handheld light meter. And if you search on the internet, you can find various solutions with regards to alternative batteries or adapters that you can use if you want to use the light meter in this camera. But as far as I'm concerned, if it's full manual, it's not necessary. Let's have a closer look at the Ricoh 500 RF and start off with the top plate, where of course we can see the film advance lever and the shutter release button, to which we can connect an external shutter release cable. We also see far right a small window which has a frame counter. In the middle we have an X connection for an external flash. And we have the film rewind knob, which we can pull up to open the back of the camera. When we look at the top of the lens, we see 3 dials. One for the aperture, one for the shutter speed, and we have the focus ring with a distance scale. The aperture ring can go from 2.8 through to f16, and it also has an A mode. When we put it at the A setting, we have a shutter priority camera, whereby you determine the shutter speed and the camera determines the correct aperture. If we set the camera back to one of its apertures, we have a full manual camera that works without a battery in the camera, only then you would be needing a separate light meter. The shutter speeds range from 1/8 of a second through to 1/500th of a second, including B mode. And the interesting thing about the aperture ring is the fact that at the bottom we have a small spigot which enables us to easily change the aperture, because the ring itself is very difficult to hold on to on the side. So that's why they included this spigot at the bottom, which works absolutely fine, as you can see. The shutter speeds have a grip on the outside ring, and there's enough grip to adjust the focusing. When we look at the front of the camera, we of course see the viewfinder, and we see the electronic eye for the internal light meter, and the dial to change the ISO setting of the film you have loaded in the camera, which ranges from ISO 25 all the way through to ISO 800. And the camera has the Ricoh color 2.8 40mm lens. And on the side we also have a self-timer. When we look at the back of the camera, we can see that it is very plain. Of course, we see the viewfinder, and we see a label that says Ricoh Company Limited, made in Taiwan, Republic of China, and the serial number of the camera. This diagram shows us what we see when we look through the viewfinder. When you set your camera to automatic or to the A mode, the camera selects the correct aperture, and this is indicated on the right hand side of the viewfinder where we find the aperture scale. When we take the camera off the A mode and select an aperture of our choice, then an M will be visible in the viewfinder, indicating that the camera is in the manual mode, even though the camera will indicate a correct aperture on the right hand side. Top right, we see an overexposure indication. Bottom right, we see an underexposure indication. Even though the needle is pointing to over or underexposure, the camera will take the photo. We also see 4 corner frame lines for the composition, and in the top left corner we see an additional frame line for parallax correction for subjects nearby. Last but not least, dead center, we see our focusing point. I have the manual winder connected to the camera, which is very easy to use. The only thing you need to do is pull up the lever and wind up the winder, so to say. And in order to use the winder, you have to press the lever all the way back in the camera. At the bottom of the winder, we see a tripod mount and also the button which we can press in to rewind the film. We have an on and an off switch, and if I put it to the on position, Now I can take the photos and the camera will automatically wind the film. And you can easily switch it off again to use it manually. We can easily take the winder off the camera and of course use the camera without the winder. We see the connections for the winder. Again, a tripod mount, the small button which we press in to rewind the film, and we have the little battery compartment which you have to press to one side to open. It's very delicate. And that's about all that I can tell you with regards to this camera. It's now time to have a look at the results that I was able to achieve. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I used Fomapan. I'm going to be showing you 10 images that I made with the 400 ISO film, which was developed in Fomadon. I hope you enjoyed the video. If that's the case, please give it a thumbs up. You're helping my channel, which is greatly appreciated. If you haven't subscribed yet, you're more than welcome to do so. Then you keep up with all the new videos that I'm going to be bringing out. Stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you next time.